It doesn't work anymore, Gavin. The hair slicker and the vat, all that doesn't work. Every once in a while, you put on your Abercrombie and Fish work clothes and you go out by that nightmare train yard by the port of LA. Remember where they loot everything, and then he picks up his little gloves, or he goes to the Paradise Fire and he digs a little ash and puts it in a bucket or something. It doesn't work anymore.
Historian and political commentator Victor Davis Hanson has launched a sharp critique of Gavin Newsom's quiet move toward a Democratic presidential run. And it is far from kind.
He's just a total failure. You destroyed the most successful, most beautiful state in the world. And the only reason it's even viable is because people unlike you, Pat Brown, who was a Democrat, but he was a good governor, Ronald Reagan, George DeMasian, Pete Wilson, they built the state. And you're living on their work, and you're trying to destroy it, but they were so, so industrious and so imaginative that it's very hard to destroy in just your 32 years and as a public official to destroy it. But you're managed.
Newsom appears to be gaining momentum as more Democrats drift into his circle. But Victor is unimpressed. His commentary is blunt, surprising, and totally unrestrained. You will not expect this. And as always, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss a bold take like this.
Is part of this that voters are so fed up with what they see on the streets of their cities that as a politician, you've got to clean up those streets?
Yeah, well, that's generally the case, but that's not the inspiration for Care Court.
But is there a political factor in this for you?
As an electoral strategy, I'm turned out. That's not the issue. The politics here is compassion. The politics is purpose.
So, I am about to play the Victor Davis Hanson clip, but first I had to share this moment to set the tone because without it, you would not grasp how intense Hanson's critique really is. In the clip we just watched, Newsom was pressed on his new Care Court proposal, the plan said to fix California's homelessness crisis. He was directly asked whether it was a publicity move to raise his political profile. But as usual, Gavin sidestepped the question with polished language and flowing deflections. That is classic Newsom. Lots of words, no clear answers. Fortunately, the interviewer pushed back.
Maybe termed out here, but does cleaning up the streets of California factor into a potential presidential run?
I'm never going to overpromise that in the short run. I mean, we are struggling in this state.
You're not answering my question.
Homelessness, no. Housing and homelessness.
People suggest that cleaning up California streets could be part of a larger political strategy for you.
I think that's table stakes. I think that's just the foundational responsibility of anyone that gets into my position. That's the day job. It's not about some grand ambition. Absolutely not.
Is that a yes or a no?
That was a never-ending response to your question.
I have to give credit to this interviewer for managing to corner Gavin Newsom into at least partially admitting he was using vague language to avoid answering. That is not easy. Newsom, like many elite Democrats, has mastered the skill of talking in loops, sounding thoughtful while saying nothing. It is all performance, elegant phrases, progressive slogans, and enough moral confidence to keep supporters applauding. Meanwhile, real problems, homelessness, mental health, failing infrastructure are ignored like old news. They are focused on appearances, not solutions, and Newsom stands alone. He is the reigning champion of empty talk. That is where Victor Davis Hanson steps in with a fierce critique.
Remember, as I said earlier, no one person is more responsible for California's decline than Gavin Newsom, because 8 years a lieutenant governor, 8 years a mayor, and he will be 8 years a governor. So he'll have 32 years in the Bay Area, Bay Area, not LA, is now with Silicon Valley money and left-wing, but that's what runs California.
Victor Davis Hanson pulls no punches. He argues Gavin Newsom has caused more damage to California than most imagined possible in their worst political fears. Hanson says Newsom did not simply mismanage the state. He directed a slow-moving collapse. After decades in public life, what remains? Rising homelessness, increasing crime, broken cities and streets that look closer to conflict zones than thriving communities. California, once a beacon of opportunity, is now shedding residents escaping high taxes, extreme housing prices, and heavy regulations. Yet through it all, Newsom smiles for cameras, boasts of success, and keeps advancing politically, as if damaging the world's fifth largest economy were an accomplishment. Hanson's judgment is harsh but direct. If this is leadership, California would be better without it.
Are responsible, and he has been overseeing all the regulations that we're going to get rid of refineries, and he bullied them and bullied them and bullied them. You got to have the California Air Resources Board does this, and you have to have this blend, and you have to do that. And finally, they said, you know what? We're going to go somewhere else. You keep importing oil from the Saudis, and you're going to have to, import gas from Nevada or, I don't know, Arizona. Go ahead, and Texas. I don't know. But we're not going to do it anymore. And that whole Richmond corridor for Northern California, they're going to leave. And gas will go up to about $8 a gallon, and all the left-wing millionaires along the coastal corridor will be happy. But he's going to panic because they're going to look at that when he wants to run for president, and his Democratic primary rivals will bring it up.
Gavin Newsom did more than drive the oil industry out of California, sending fuel prices soaring. He also weakened the core of Hollywood. Yes, the leader who claims to support innovation buried the state's famous film industry under heavy regulation, high taxes, and moral posturing. It follows the same pattern. A tech success regulated heavily, then acts surprised when it leaves. Producers tired of delays and rising costs move their work elsewhere. Today, it can cost less to move their 20 crews overseas than to film in Newsom's California. A state once rich in movie magic is now buried in red tape. Hollywood did not fade on its own. It was regulated, taxed, and pushed out, with Newsom holding the shovel.
What's the price of gas? How many people have left California versus Florida? What's your tax rate versus ours? Here's how many people you have, and here's your budget, and here's how many people we have in our budget. And he's done all of that. And so, remember that line in Animal House where, what was that guy's name? I know everybody knows. Dean Wormel, or what? Wormer? Yeah, he says to the
Dean Wormer.
Going through life fat, lazy, and ugly. Or is that what he says? Fat, ugly, and lazy is nowhere to go through life. I feel like somebody should say being incoherent, incompetent, and I don't know what else, corrupt, is no way to go through being a governor.
Hanson continues the verbal assault, calling Gavin Newsom corrupt, ineffective, and deeply inefficient. Newsom has overseen billions in taxpayer funds, but what results exist? Look at the California high-speed rail project. About $13 billion has already been spent, yet there are no completed stations, no running trains, and very little track installed. First sold as a $33 billion project finishing in 2020, costs now range between $106 and $128 billion, with completion drifting into the $23 billion, with completion drifting into the 2030s. Progress has moved painfully slow, with only a 171-mile stretch in the Central Valley under construction, and even that lacks tracks. Hanson's message is clear. Spending billions on a train that goes nowhere is not leadership. It is financial recklessness. If Newsom cannot manage a rail project, how could he possibly run a nation?
Everything you've done, from high-speed rail to the tax rate at 13.3 to gasoline tax that you're now increasing, it's going to be it is the highest in the nation.
Hanson is relentless. He directly accuses Gavin Newsom of driving California downward. Since taking office, he has not elevated the state. He has weakened it. Infrastructure is falling apart. The economy is struggling. Debt continues to rise, crime is increasing, and streets remain unsafe. California, once a symbol of success, has turned into a warning sign of failed governance and stage politics. Newsom has overseen some of the most destructive wildfires in state history, fueled by ignored prevention efforts and poor water management. Only under his leadership could political activism spiral so far it creates a nationwide crisis. Under Newsom, disorder is not rare. It is routine. Hanson's conclusion is undeniable. Newsom's record is disastrous, and the only thing he has built is a long list of reasons he should never approach the White House.
I remember going 3 or 4 years old, and that's your legacy. And the LA fire, the Aspen fire, the Paradise fire, all of that, it's you took paradise and you made it into purgatory. That's what you did. And then you, every once in a while, went to Napa wine tasting while people were trying to get a permit in LA, and you went to the French Laundry while you shut down everybody else. And you can't help but you're living in a $9 million house, your wife has government contract.
This explains why many Americans believe Gavin Newsom would be a disastrous president if he ever wins the Democratic nomination. Unlike King Midas, who turned everything into gold, nearly everything Newsom touches appears to deteriorate. From broken infrastructure and rising crime to failed wildfire and water policies, his record speaks clearly. Now, in an obvious publicity move, he has launched a podcast. Apparently, that is the next step for struggling governors with national ambitions. He claims it promotes bipartisan discussion and gives space to all voices. But few are convinced. It feels like political ambition disguised as outreach. Voters recognize it for what it is, another vanity effort designed to clean up his image before a possible 2028 campaign.
You were a Nepo baby that got everything from the Getty family, and now you're kind of a caricature. He does that little neck thing. What is that? He goes back and forth with his neck. It doesn't work anymore, Gavin. The hair slicker and the vat, all that doesn't work. Every once in a while, you put on your Abercrombie and Fish work clothes and you go out by that nightmare train yard by the port of LA. Remember where they loot everything and then he picks up with his little glove.
Gavin Newsom is not a self-made political genius. He is a textbook example of elite favoritism. Call it honestly. He is a beneficiary of powerful connections built through long-standing ties to the wealthy Getty family. His father was close to Gordon Getty, and Gavin grew up within that privileged network. That is not a story of hard work. It is access handed down that explains his rapid rise despite repeated failures. Homelessness keeps growing, crime continues climbing, wildfires remain uncontrolled, yet he still poses for cameras, still aiming for the presidency. What is most shocking is not his record. It is how far he has advanced in spite of it.
Digs a little ash and puts it in a bucket or something. It doesn't work anymore. He's just a total failure. You destroyed the most successful, most beautiful state in the world. And the only reason it's even viable is because people unlike you, Pat Brown, who was a Democrat, but he was a good governor, Ronald Reagan, George DeMasian, Pete Wilson, they built the state. And you're living on their work and you're trying to destroy it, but they were so, so industrious and so imaginative that it's very hard to destroy in just your 32 years and as a public official to destroy it, but you're managing.
By every measurable metric, Gavin Newsom has failed as California's governor. Fortunately, his term is nearing its end, but instead of stepping aside, he is setting his sights on the presidency. To the Democratic Party, here's blunt advice. Do not choose this man for 2028. Doing so would gift the election to Republicans. Newsom's record is toxic. Rising homelessness, growing crime, uncontrolled wildfires, residents leaving the state, and billions wasted on headline projects like the high-speed rail disaster. If this reflects leadership at the state level, imagine the damage nationally. Choosing him would be a dream scenario for GOP strategists. Democrats need results, not rehearsed lines and evasive speeches. Newsom's legacy is a warning sign, built on privilege, marked by failure, and protected by media spin. From flawed policies to constant self-promotion, he has shown he cannot lead California, much less the country. If Democrats want to win in 2028, they should look elsewhere. With Newsom leading the ticket, it is not a risk, it is political suicide. That concludes today's commentary. If you enjoyed this take, like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.